Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm the lady that invented the hump jumper, the sewing notion that helps you get over those thick seams where a regular pressure foot just might not go. I also invented the puts-it and the buttonhole buster, the sewing notions that help solve those frustrating problems. I'm known as the hump jump lady. Today I'm going to show you how to use the puts-it, the unique little tool that a friend of mine calls it her third hand. And one end is the shape of a pencil, the other end is the shape of a flathead screwdriver. This was invented when I used to own a couturier bridal shop where I designed and made and fabricated all my own wedding dresses. And I used to get so frustrated when the gathers would jump all over the place underneath my presser foot. I used to turn the corners of a white wedding gown with a pencil, and I know that's not a good idea. So one day I took my pencil and I took my screwdriver and I duct taped them together, and as I was using my tool, it eventually became the shape of my hand. And so I said, whoa, I got another invention here besides my hump jumper. So I went to my mold maker and we came up with the puts-it, a screwdriver and a pencil all in one. And so one of the things that it will do, as I said, I used this when I was making my wedding dresses. And I've put together this sample, and I've got 2 layers of gathers here. I've got banding here, and I've got another row of banding, and I have another piece of fabric. So actually I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of material here. And if I were to put this underneath my sewing machine or my presser foot, all right, all these gathers would be jumping all over the place. As you stitch along, I always put my needle down when I start to sew. As you start to sew, you're going to take the screwdriver end of your puts-it and gently place it in front of your general purpose foot or the foot that you're using, and control those gathers as they go underneath the presser foot so they don't jump all over the place. Because the thicker the material, the thicker the gathers, and they're going to jump around. So I just control them, and as I stitch along, making sure I take my needles out as I go, I'm going to pull down my gathers, and I'm going to hold the gathers down so they don't jump all over the place underneath my presser foot. And as you can see, none of my gathers, and I did this in white thread so you'd be able to see, but as you can see, none of the gathers are all jumped all over the place, and they're very, very even. So when I open it up, I have even little gathers for the bottom, if this could be a skirt or a little apron or something, and I have like nice even, whoops, get that thread out of the way, nice even gathers. The puts-it is also good for turning out a corner. You're going to take the blunt end of the puts-it, and as you turn your material right side out, you can take the blunt end of your puts-it and put it into the corner, pushing out that corner so you get a really nice corner. See how perfect that is? Perfect. So there's that one. And another thing that this will do, if you do any quilting, it helps you get that real square corner where you have all your little squares together. Because what happens sometimes, as you've pinned these together, you've got a pin right where the stitch will be. Well, I do. I put a little pin right where the stitches are supposed to be on top of each other. But what happens to me a lot, and I'm not the greatest quilter in the whole world, is I'll be stitching along and these seam allowances jump, and I'll look over and I'll say, oh no, I have to take it out because my seam allowance didn't lay straight. So what I do, I start stitching my quilt pieces together, and as I stitch along, once I get to where the seam allowance is, I make sure the underneath one is lying flat. Then I take my pin out and I take my puts-it and I put it right on top of my seam allowance and hold it down so it doesn't jump out of place. And then I control it to the very end. And then if you look, my seam allowance are flat on both sides. Magic. And I have a nice square corner where all my corners meet right here. The other thing that this is fun to do, if you do any delicate stitching, I've made using heirloom stitching. I've made beautiful christening dresses and babies' bonnets. And when I started doing this, I got to the point where I couldn't get all the little pieces of lace to stay together. So I discovered that the flat end of my putset was very good for this. So I made a sample here where I have a piece of lace. Isn't this pretty? Then I have a ribbon, and then I have another piece of ribbon lace right here. And I have stitched part of this down so you can see how all these pieces lie nice and flat. And the way I did this, I'm going to start where I stopped. What I did, if I put my needle down, I want to make sure that all this beading lays nice and flat along my material. So if I were to start stitching, I again would take the blunt end of my putset and I would gently put it right on top of the beading, so all that beading is going to lie flat as I stitch down. Now, if you were using entre-deux, I think, you could hold those little tiny pieces together, and as you zigzag, the blunt end of your putset would hold those pieces together. One of the other things that the putset will do is it will help you with your sewing machine in placing the needle and taking the bobbin out of your sewing machine. This is especially good for those sewers that have arthritic fingers, or they just don't have that touch anymore and they've become frustrated and they just stop sewing. So what you can do, let me put my glasses back on. The putset has a hole. It's a tapered hole in the end of the end where the blunt tip is. And this hole is for the sewing machine needle. Now what you can do, first of all, you're going to loosen the screw of your needle and take your needle out. And remember, it's an old needle, so just toss it away, because the duller the needle, the harder it is to sew the fabric. Then you're going to take a new needle and you're going to put it in the hole of the putset. And you're going to put it back where you just took the needle out. So you're going to take it over here and gently lift it up into the place where the needle goes. And then you're going to tighten your screw. Once you've tightened the screw, remove the putset and just give a little tug to the needle to make sure that it's tight enough. And then you're just going to thread your needle. Now, a lot of sewers have said to me that it's almost impossible to thread your needle. And you'll notice on my presser foot, there is a piece of white tape in front of the presser foot. But if you don't have something like that, you could put a piece of like white tape on your presser foot, or put a piece of black fabric in the back and then just thread your needle. Because you'll be able to see that hole, the white fabric through the hole, and then just there. Now the other thing that you can do is the screwdriver end of the putset, and you can open the door, open your bobbin door, all right? And then take the screwdriver end, release the bobbin, and the bobbin should come out. Release the bobbin and it will come out. All right, and then you can thread your bobbin and you'll be all set. And once you've got your bobbin all threaded, put it back in your bobbin case and place it in your door. Perfect. The other thing that the Putz-It has, it has a ruler. It is a 4-inch ruler on the back. And if you need it, what you could do is just like what you did for your buttonhole buster. I colored in the markings on my buttonhole buster that I use. You could color in the inches on your Putz-It that you use the most. Some suggested uses for the Putz-It. You can calm your jumping gathers. You can control those runaway seams, flip a bobbin, steady a runaway piece, still a button, stuff a little piece, turn a point, and it makes an awesome back scratcher. Other suggestions, especially for those delicate stitching, heirloom stitching by machine, controlling delicate fabrics, attaching appliques, joining fabrics, ribbons, and lace, and perfect for those arthritic fingers needing a little bit of extra help with a delicate touch. I'm Sandy, the Hump Jump Lady of SN Designs Company, the inventor of the Hump Jumper, the Putz-It, and the Buttonhole Buster, the sewing notions that solve such frustrating problems. Happy sewing!